So the digestive system, like any bodily system, is very complex, and this is where we get all of our nutrients from, absorbed through the digestive system. But the food has to be broken down into these smaller molecules that our body can use to convert to energy. So, anatomically, begins in the mouth, travels through the pharynx and the esophagus into the stomach, where it enters the small intestine, the large intestine, or the bowels, and then is excreted. But it's funny because digestion does not actually begin to occur when food enters your mouth. It actually occurs by the thought of food, sight of food, or smell of food, just by even seeing or thinking of food. Your hypothalamus will send a message via the vagus nerve to your specialized stomach cells and tell them to start releasing gastric juices to prepare for food that's about to enter. So, I have a yummy cinnamon roll. I take a bite out of it. My teeth begin to start mechanically breaking this down into a bolus. But chemical digestion also begins to occur in the mouth because one of your salivary glands will release salivary amylase. This begins to break down the carbohydrates within the food that you're eating. Then you swallow it. There's 3 phases to swallowing. The first one is voluntary, where you tell yourself, hey, swallow this. And then the other 2 are reflexes. So as the bolus travels down it first travels through the pharynx, and then it travels into the esophagus, but first the epiglottis has to open up and cover the trachea so that food isn't getting into your respiratory system. But as it travels down the epiglottis, peristalsis propels it forward and further breaks down the food. This is just muscle contractions of the esophagus. And then the bolus will move through the gastroesophageal sphincter. And this is clinically important because it's not backwash, I don't know the correct word for this, but if food moves from the stomach back into the esophagus, the acidity of the stomach acid causes heartburn. So if you have a weak sphincter, then you're going to have heartburn. But once the food enters the stomach, it continues to get broken down mechanically and chemically. Mechanically because the muscles surrounding the stomach are going to be contracting like this to break it down, and then the specialized cells are going to be releasing pepsinogen technically, but that's the inactive version. But once it meets the low pH of the stomach, it converts into pepsin, which breaks down proteins into amino acids. And then there's also gastric lipase, which begins to break down fats. So that all happens in the stomach. Once it moves through, it's going to go through the pyloric sphincter and enter the duodenum or duodenum of the small intestine, however you want to say it. And this is where the digestive system is going to receive secretions from secondary organs like the liver, gallbladder, and pancreas. The liver works to produce bile, while the gallbladder stores it, and bile works to emulsify fats into smaller particles and pieces so that it's easier to absorb. It's kind of works as like a micelle with the, I think the polar end, or I guess it'd be the non-polar end. The non-polar end attaching to these fat. Yeah, non-polar end, sorry. The non-polar end attaches to the fat particles and breaks them apart, essentially. And then the pancreas is also working to release enzymes like pancreatic amylase and proteases, which amylase, again, breaks down carbohydrates, and proteases break down proteins. So then there's also brush border enzymes, which also help to break down proteins. But the small intestine is where majority of absorption occurs, and digestion as well. But majority of absorption occurs in the small intestine. So again, it'll travel through the duodenum, then it'll go into the jejunum, and then the ileum. Once it reaches the ileum, it's then going to travel into the large intestine or your bowels, where, there's a little bit of diet or absorption that occurs here. There's also a little bit of absorption that occurs in the stomach as well, but only small particles and alcohol as well. But the large intestine's main goal is to reabsorb water and compact food to get it ready for expulsion. But I believe that is pretty much a pretty simple overview of the digestive system. But a little fun fact, actually, is that the digestive system is not inside of your body. For something to be considered inside of your body, it needs to pass a mucous membrane. All the digestive system has is a series of organs separated by sphincters, which are just rings of muscle. So nothing is passing a mucous membrane in your digestive system, unless particles are getting absorbed. So, little fun fact.